Alright, so why shop Scottish? Let's see. Sentiment. Also a chance to compare and contrast, because the year before the railway department had shopped Baldwin, and essentially they would be in a position to compare the Baldwin tea coal product with the Sharp Stewart and with the preceding Addington U. They hadn't had that opportunity since 1885, comparing the Baldwin Wadu type with the Naismith-Wilson Wadu type. They only ordered 6 because it was part of a larger order that included a number of the B-class Bumble type locomotives. Class identification, yes, the Tico type were plagued for their first few years of existence with some difficulties regarding class identification. Interestingly, the Scottish built locomotives came into service as the U class, whereas the Addington built locomotives were U Colonial and the Baldwin built locomotives were U American. Is there any point doing a video about 6 locomotives? Yes, there is, but it will also be a short video. There's 2 points. The first is aesthetics, because that's important in any appreciation of a steam locomotive. They looked, upon delivery, a lot like the Addington U. They followed the technical aspects of the Addington U as well. So we now have an opportunity to compare the Baldwin approach with respect to, say, heating surface with the Sharp Stewart approach, and you'll see there's a significant difference in heating surface if you look at the bottom right of the plans. Were there any differences with the others? Both the Baldwins of 1898 and subsequent and the Sharp Stewarts were lower drivered than the Addington U's, so that had the tendency of creating a greater tractive effort. There are also differences in boiler pressure with the Sharp Stewarts compared to the Addington U's. Were they any good? This is the big question, of course. You want your locomotives to be good, and whilst on paper they had a useful tractive effort, and whilst on paper the Tico wheel arrangement is a solid, well-proven one, the reality was that you can have all the tractive effort in the world you like, but if you're not producing steam, the wheels are not going to turn. And the Sharp Stewart Ticos of 1899 had a reputation for being difficult to fire. I'm not sure if that's a reference to their lack of heating surface compared with the Baldwins, or if it's a difficulty inherent in the firebox itself, but either way, they disappointed compared with the Baldwins. Any left? Yes, their atoms still exist. They were dumped over the edge, or at least some of them were, and if you clown around at Oamaru at low tide after a storm, who knows, you might get to see some. Did they have any historical significance? Yes. Yes, they did, because they allowed the comparison between the Scottish built example and the colonial built example of similar spec, and the compare and contrast with the Baldwins. What happened over subsequent years is that Baldwin tended to be approached if locomotives were needed in a hurry, but Sharp Stewart's successor company, North British, were approached for building locomotives to the strict New Zealand specification as part of the strategic expansion of the locomotive fleet. Sharp Stewart had, including their predecessor companies, had built more than 4,000 locomotives. And whilst that's peanuts compared with Baldwin, it's still a significant number in and of itself. So they produced their locomotives in one batch. They were allocated numbers in one batch, here to here. Any mods over the years? Yes, and once again, Sean Miller's magnum opus covers this in nice detail. Some of them received superheaters, but they shuffled out of service at the same time as the 1898 Baldwins. You'll remember that the 1898 Baldwins had slide valves, the Sharp Stewarts do not. I suspect that superheating wasn't enough to make up for them being poor steamers by comparison with the Baldwins. That's what I suspect, coupled with downturn in traffic, the donation of their boilers to keep their later Sharp Stewart brethren going means they shuffled out of service early. There's no footage that I can find. They're not an overly photographed type, but they do feature in two of the best photographs in my view ever taken of New Zealand locomotives in service. Sort of Winston Link-like, where the photographs show the locomotives within the context of their communities. And yes, it's time for a musical montage. It will be shorter than usual because there's not a great deal of photos. And thank you to the NZRLS archives once again for the bulk of the photographs. Like, subscribe, enjoy. Cheers.